This is Ben from Gustafson Travel, and I'm joined here with Doug Parker from Cruise Radio. Doug, it's awesome to be here with you.
Yeah, man.
I've known you for, almost probably going on 10 years now.
Yeah, a little over.
Cruised a bunch of inaugurals with you, ran into you around the world. So it's been enjoyable to have you here, and I'm really happy that you joined me kind of on the other side of the couch, so to speak, being interviewed versus the one being doing the questions. So
yeah, it's weird over here.
Yeah, a little bit different in the hot seat for
a little
once.
bit,
Yeah. Just want to go over with you some of kind of the basic questions that people may have if they're thinking about a cruise, haven't gone on a cruise, maybe they've gone on a cruise and it wasn't for them. And to me personally, there's no bad cruise line, there's no bad cruise, there's just different cruises and different cruise lines for different people. So to start off, what made you love cruising? What drew you to the water into cruising?
Oh gosh, well my dad was a ship captain.
Okay.
So growing up I used to ride ships with him all around the world. And then he became a river pilot as we got older and he wanted to stay home with us. So I was riding ships up and down the river with him, like cruise ships, container ships, tankers, all of that. And our very first cruise was Carnival Fantasy in the 90s. I remember walking on, first I didn't want to go. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
But then he's like, no, you're going, I paid for it. And when you're a kid, you're going. So I remember walking on board Carnival Fantasy and just being in total awe. I mean, it was just like 12 floors, a raised ceiling, and I was just like, where am I?
Those glass elevators and the atrium is just, it's
very
incredible.
Like, I think my mind was going like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with the glass elevators inside a big shopping mall with the big atrium. I don't know, it was just something I just couldn't get my head around how it actually floats. I mean, I know now, but back then I couldn't. And so, I think I was hooked from that point. And then, like, all through college, we were doing spring break cruises, summer cruises, cruise just the cruise.
Right,
and living in Florida, we still get, well, not as much now as we used to, but like super cheap last minute rates.
Yeah.
So we were like just hooked. And fast forward today, still am.
Yep, and if you're flexible with deals, and even if you don't live in Florida, but if you can go last minute, sometimes you can get great things because they've got last minute cabins that are not sold out, and you can just jump on them and go for almost a song. So, and I was in the Navy, I was on a submarine, and I'm sure with you being on container ships and cargo ships, cruise ships a whole lot different, more relaxed life than what you did initially. So,
well, it's also cool too because like being in Florida, we would get brushed with hurricanes or threats or whatnot. So like back when Royal was sailing their old, I think Sovereign class ships like Monarch of the Seas, Sovereign of the Seas, people would cancel last minute, and so they drop them to like $39 for an inside room for 3 or 4 nights. We're like, let's do it.
On the Carnival Breeze Transatlantic, I think Irma had just hit New York City, very similar. You could get on last minute. And even if you couldn't get on last minute, it's one of the values of the early saver rates. I know Carnival has, the other lines have similar price protected rates. So you may have booked 2 years ago, but if they drop rates last minute and your travel agent especially staying on top of that for you, they can get you in and save you hundreds of dollars, if not more.
Absolutely.
So it's a huge benefit to do not only the early saver rates, the price protection, but to use a travel agent who can kind of keep on top of those things for you because they're staying on top of the pulse of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And that actually jumps right into my second question is, what value do you see travel agents bringing? Even if you're a savvy person, you know the internet, what does a travel agent kind of bring to that experience for you?
For me personally, I've had mine for a little over 10 years now, and it's about the final payment, right? Because I always have multiple bookings, and it's like herding cats trying to keep up with what's due when.
Right.
Mine, I guess, has a spreadsheet or something, so she'll be like, okay, you have this due, you have this due.
Yeah.
We're going to use the card on file.
Yep.
Like, she's also helped me a lot too because she knows that I'm a super light sleeper. So she'll make sure that I'm not booked like above a nightclub or underneath the Lido area where they're dragging chairs throughout the night and all that. So it's just someone who doing the research and actually staying on top of the booking, and mine even monitors price drops too, which normally you don't typically, with travel agents making commission, it doesn't really help them.
Right.
If you say, hey, your cruise is $600 cheaper, because that's really money out of their pocket.
Yeah.
But mine always like says, hey, what do you want to do with it? Do you want it in onboard credit? Do you want a refund or what have you? And that's always, depending on what fare you book and all that stuff. But yeah, so she saved me probably, thousands at this point.
Right. Yeah, and that's something I do as well. Is I have tasks, and when you talk about monitoring final payment, it's great because I can automatically have tasks in that 100 days before the sale, put out a reminder for final payment, and then usually like on Carnival, it's 90 days before it's final payment. So it's all automated reminder. You go in and make the payment, so it's super simple.
Yeah.
And I have tasks for myself to go in multiple times a month to check early saver rates. I flag which of my clients are on early saver rates to go in and save them money, because I know I often book with early saver rates, and it's again, like last minute deal, something happens and people have to jump off the ship because of a hurricane or something else, you can really snag a great deal.
Yes, and I always do mine as soon as I start booking it. The first of the month, I always just do it divided by the payments all the way up until final payments due. This way, it's just kind of, I normally book like 18 months out or whatnot, so it's either paid for in 12 months, 18 months. Sometimes I'll say, hey, just pay double or triple depending on where I am. And it's like, this was paid for, this cruise here, probably a year ago.
Yeah, as soon as they announced it. Yeah, and Carnival's great too, and we can still use this as travel agents. They have the easy pay where you can pay and break it up between, basically today and final payment. So if that's 12 months or 18 months, you can divide that out.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we also, just like through booking directly through Carnival, have access to Uplift. So if it's something that you want to space it out, maybe you need it 3 years and you're okay with paying Uplift may charge a 10% or 15% interest fee, but compared to some credit cards, you could still be saving a lot of money by using Uplift and having just a nice, every month you pay a certain off and you can pay it off early. So that's great to have that available too, especially if you want to do something, real special. I'm getting ready to do a 40th birthday cruise next year, and I'm kind of going all out and looking for, it's not going to be cheap. So having the ability to break that out is going to be real nice.
Nice.
Now I've known you since cruise radio was kind of in its fledgling viewerships, and really with the pandemic, it really took off. I mean, we've talked about this of just, I think everybody was living vicariously through you in the news, because none of us could cruise. Nobody was out there, and we were all hungry to know. It was going to be 2 weeks, and then a month, and then 2 months, and a year and a half. I think it ended up being almost. So kind of what got you in from just cruising with your family into doing cruise radio? What really made that transition?
So when I actually started it, it was more of like I guess we'll call it a drunken idea, because that's what it was. It was just Derek and I were sitting, I was on his bachelor cruise, and we were sitting on the back of like Sovereign of the Seas or something like that. It was 2009. And just thinking, why not just mix two things that I like doing together? And of course, all my friends were like, it's never going to work. So
you had a radio background before that, right?
I was in radio. By the time I left, I was there for 13 years. But so on a cocktail napkin, I sketched out a show clock, gave it to my boss the following Monday morning, and he was like, it's never going to work, but we have an opening slot, 7:30 on Sunday morning. You can have it. It's only 30 minutes from 7:30 to 8. He's like, you'll catch the church crowd, but it's only in Jacksonville, blah, blah, blah. So I'll take it. So I took it, and then little did I know that people were finding it. I have no clue how, but people were streaming all over the world, right? So then fast forward to 2011, January of 11, the station was cutting budgets, so they pulled streaming. So all we had now is just the local stick, just local Jacksonville, people could hear it. And so I got all these emails, people saying, where's your show? It's not playing anymore. What am I going to do? I'm like, whoa, I had no clue you were even there, but so I went on Strictly Podcast at that point, and then kind of just have been running with it ever since.
Yeah, and that was a great transition, I think, for a lot of radio and stuff. I listened to other channels that were on satellite radio, things have changed, but now, even with this, the ability to reach people through YouTube, Facebook, it's really revolutionized how media is created, how content's created, and it gives you such a direct line to people where you don't have to be on a traditional radio station to get out there. And I mean, Florida, even if you are on the radio, what a great place to have cruise radio, but Florida with so many ports and so many people cruising.
Yeah, and it's also crazy these days too. Like, you look at people like who do like a Twitter live or a Facebook live or a YouTube live, some of these people have larger audiences than a show on primetime these days, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, and I mean, I've watched some YouTube series that, I mean, it's a whole TV series, but it's just on YouTube, right? Not even on Netflix or anything like that. And it's amazing just how quickly and how many people can, get their ideas out there.
Yeah.
And you don't have to run it through a production company. You don't have to get it vetted and convince somebody else. You can just do it. And even here, I've teaching myself video editing. The fact that I can make my own content and do all of this and not need to rely on other people, it's a great time to be in media.
Well, there's no gatekeeper, right? You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Exactly. As we mentioned earlier, I don't believe there are good or bad cruise lines. I think there are good or bad cruise lines for somebody. Depending on what you're looking for, the ambiance, entertainment. What are some of the things you look at when you consider for yourself or when you compare cruise lines? What are kind of the criteria or different things that you see differentiate the different cruise lines?
I like the laid back atmosphere, more laid back atmosphere, just very chill. Like I don't want to be structured.
Right.
I also look at the destination too.
Sure.
So, if it's going to somewhere I haven't been before, I'll do it. And I don't know, it's the idea of getting on a ship with 7,000 other people, which is some ships out there these days. Like, nothing against that because these ships I'm talking about have everything on them, right?
Yeah.
But
roller coasters on Carnival, you've got the water parks and the wave runners and the different things on Royal. I mean, there's some insane things you can do on ships now.
Yeah, and I mean, I've done them all, and I can say that, like, going on a ship with that many people, it doesn't feel like there's that many people on board. Like, they do a great job at spacing it all out.
Yeah.
But I like to scale back, like, I don't know, we'll say 2,000 to 4,000 ish ship, like this one we're on right now. And other ones, it's like I've even done like, I guess you could classify it like as luxury in Alaska. I did Seabourn right before the shutdown from Vancouver up to Whittier, Alaska. And like 800 people. It was just so nice and so chill. Of course, arm and a leg,
Yeah,
but still.
And if that's something that's accessible to you, it's great because it's there. And if you want that ultra luxury, you can do it. If you want laid back, you can do it. I love the Spirit class in Carnival. That's about 1,800 guests. And that's not just the guest, it's also the guest to crew ratio. And on Spirit class for Carnival, I think they've nailed it. And the spaces, the venues are just a great size. And not just the ports that are important, but the length of the cruise. I think out there in the industry, Carnival especially might get a bad rap on some of these cruises, and they are 3 to 4 day cruises. And the vibe on a 3 to 4 day cruise, very different than on a 7-day cruise or this, which is a 15-day cruise. And the age of the people going on board is much different. The entertainment, I know I've seen in all these inaugurals, they will fly on a ballroom dance couple to teach ballroom dance. You're not probably going to see that on Carnival or maybe Royal on a 3 or 4 day cruise, maybe on a Seabourn. But they really do listen and they understand the demographic of different cruises. So I know for my own parents, they went on a 3-day cruise, and I think it was on a fairly budget cruise line to like Nassau, and they really didn't enjoy it. And I'm saying, well, that's about as crazy party, and that's great if that's what you're looking for. Nothing against that if that is the vibe you're looking for. But my parents are a little bit older, and that really wasn't the vibe they were looking for. So, and that's what I think a travel agent can bring to the table too, is they understand the cruise lines. They've either cruised them themselves or had clients who cruised them and gotten feedback, and they really can understand, how to pair you with the right cruise line, with the right ship, and the right itinerary, because they all really do affect what your onboard experience.
Also, I'd probably say too the connections that they could have. For instance, mine has connections with cruise lines. Like there was a really wanted late dinner on an Alaska cruise because I had a lot of shore excursions, all-day excursions. I think it was Princess, and like she knew the maitre d' or something on the ship I was on. I had no clue she knew him. And it was waitlisted, so I couldn't actually get it. But she's like, I made a phone call. I tried to take care of it for you. And so she didn't tell me she did, but she made a call, and she did. I got on the ship, and I had late dining.
And that's one of the things I love, too. And for me, I normally cruise Carnival, and it's because the connections I've made on board, the friendships with folks. One of the most well-known, I think, maitre d's for Carnival is Ken Byrne, such a nice guy. And we've had instances where he was signing off the ship the week before we got on, saw that we were coming on board and still reached out and said, is there anything that we can do for you to make your week special? And he wasn't even going to be on board that week. He just saw that oncoming list, and he was helping seat everybody, and he saw we were there. And it's, for me, and you can build that loyalty with any brand. But just going to the same ships, knowing the same people, it really does make it special. And you and I both on here, we've seen crew, and when you do special cruises like this Inaugural in Venezia, it's a lot of the same crew, a lot of the same guests. For me, it's like a family reunion, and I really enjoy that. That's the vibe that I love cruising. You know, I don't mind doing a 7-day, I don't mind doing a 5-day, but this is like a homecoming for me, and that's what I really love about these type of cruises. Why would you pick a cruise over a land destination, or would you? And
no, I think it's a good question. I am very I have to be moving nonstop. Right, I can't even sit still for this interview. So, like the idea of going and laying on a beach all day for, like, my friend Julie just got back from 8 days in the DR at an all-inclusive resort. And I was like, well, what'd y'all do? She's like, oh, we just laid on the beach. We didn't do any excursions or anything. And I'm like, oh, that's cool because that's what y'all enjoy. But I just wouldn't enjoy that. I like waking up and being in a different place. And if I want to get off the ship, I will, or hire a driver or take a shore excursion. Or if I don't want to, I'll just stay on board. And I don't know. It's like I'm not a sun person, so I don't really. The all-inclusives don't really.
They tell me there's a pool and a sun up here somewhere, and I rarely see it myself, but I'm glad it's there.
It's I just think cruising is a little more my speed because I can get off the ship, stay on the ship, do different things, and I like this too. Like, we're sitting here on your balcony, and the sound of the water, man, that's so therapeutic. You can hear that on the beach, but I don't know.
And we're looking out. We've got Africa right there. We've got Gibraltar here. I've got photos of you in Gibraltar making friends with some monkeys on a previous trip through here, and it's amazing. And if you want to be able to lay out, there's also Virgin. That's one of the greatest things. They have that beautiful sun deck. They very much focus on fitness, and they've got cabanas you can rent on board, and you can get that hybrid experience where you can have the laying out on a beach. They love to do overnights and late night calls. I enjoy it too because it gives you a taster of different ports before you have to commit to a week trip. I love Puerto Vallarta, and I'm very happy to do a week in Puerto Vallarta, but had I not, I think, cruised there first on a Mexican Riviera itinerary, I probably wouldn't have realized that. So it gives you that trial before you realize, no, I don't really like this country or this vibe, things like that. So we have a lot of people who are probably tuning in, looking to either book their first cruise or they're considering booking their first cruise. Do you have any tips for them outside, relying on a travel agent to help narrow in on that right ship itinerary, dateline combo, or length combo? Is there any other tips you'd have for people looking for?
I would just say, really, once you settle on a ship, like, look at the deck plans, look at YouTube videos, do searches online, because there's so much information out there. It's like a fire hydrant of information. You want to know, like, I should practice what I preach, because like when I went on Mardi Gras, I was so lost. Like, I had the thing booked for 2 or 3 years, and I still, I was saying, no, it's just a Carnival ship.
To be fair, not many people had been on it, or anybody when you went on it, because it was the pandemic, so it hadn't been a whole lot yet of the deck plans.
But it took me like 2 days to figure out where I was, and or they didn't have names for the floors, right? It wasn't like Promenade, Main, Riviera. It was deck 1 through 20 or 19. So that took a little bit of getting used to, but definitely do your research. And know what you're getting into. Like, you want to manage your expectations. If you're going on a Carnival cruise, don't expect 5-star service. Like, just like if you're going on a Silver Sea, don't expect a 1-star service or whatever.
And to me, I think what I love about Carnival, what I do find about Carnival that is 5-star, is the relationships you can build with the people on board. Though, I mean, the crew here are some of the most amazing people I've met. I've had crew that I've met on a Carnival ship who took me out to my birthday when I was visiting Colombia, where they're from. I mean, that's just incredible. And a plug for you, if you are looking to do ship tours, I know on your YouTube channel on Cruise Radio, you have ship tours for Carnival, Royal, a lot of different ships out there. Great in-depth ship tours. And what I love about everything you do on Cruise Radio is it's not clickbait. It's not, look what somebody did to me. There's so much, what's the word? I mean, you everything becomes hyper everything.
Sensationalism out there.
Exactly. And you're very fair and you're very balanced. And if there's things that you thought that they missed the mark, you're very, you're willing to point that out, but you're also it's just it's a great way to just get really the facts, and I do really appreciate that about what you do.
Yeah,
on
thank
Radio.
you. I think that's the way. Like, you don't stay around for 14 years by just being sensationalist or
Right.
putting out sensationalism pieces or whatever. That's
Yeah.
why you got to earn your trust from your readers, your viewers, your listeners, or
Yes.
whatever. And I hope that's what I've been doing over the past 14 years because people are still with me.
Yeah,
So-
and I see people stopping you in the hallways when you're down. Actually, one of my neighbors here saw you over the side and,
Yeah.
and said that they love your work, so definitely. And just one final point about managing expectations is, understanding the kind of cruise you're on. So I think what makes cruising so amazing is that it is repetition. So the 7-day itineraries, the 4 and 5 days, they do it every single week. And sure, some of the crew rotates in and out every single week as people go home, new people come on to start contracts, but they really get to narrow that down and just perfect it, almost to a fault some ways, and like you forget that you're on a cruise ship, and sometimes things happen because you're on a piece of metal floating in the water and you tend to forget that.
Yeah.
We've seen flooding in recent ships lately that have made the news, and you do got to remember, you are on a boat, things can happen.
Yeah.
On an inaugural like this is a brand new crew who's never worked together before. On a brand new ship, though very similar to her Carnival sisters, is still different. And being a 14-day one-off itinerary, it's not going to have that same perfected flow that you would see in a 7-day, and you just got to manage those expectations and roll with it. And for me, I love that. I love that this is kind of a unique experience. Earlier today, I was up on the Lido deck with some of what John Heel would call the beards of Carnival, and they were perfecting a drink because they had been waiting on some of the liquor to come on. They were able to finally get it up to the bar, and they're doing this back and forth and tasting, and I like seeing kind of how that sausage is made and seeing that behind the scenes, and that, again, you probably won't see that much in a 7-day, and for me, I love that. But again, managing your expectations and really understanding the vibe and what you're going to get on that
absolutely.
cruise. So Doug, I really appreciate your time here. If you want to give a plug for Cruise Radio, where they can find you, I know Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, is that pretty much the main?
Yeah, Instagram, TikTok, it's all Cruise Radio.
Yeah, excellent. So Cruise Radio and all your favorite social media apps. Well, Doug, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you more this week and listening to your videos on YouTube. Appreciate
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thank you.
it.